Welcome back to the channel. I'm Austin, and today I'm going to be comparing the XM4 versus the FARA and discussing which one is the best AR in Warzone. I'm going to go over the basic stats first, then give my opinion on which one you should use, and stick around for the class setups at the end. First, let's go over the FARA. I think the first thing that jumps out when you use this weapon is going to be its lack of recoil. When I first tried it out, it gave me the feeling of being broken because it felt like a mixture of the AMAX and Grau. This might be the most accurate weapon in Warzone's history, so I'm not going to sugarcoat it. If you can't hit your shots with this weapon, you're honestly just bad. You're a scrub, so just don't play the game if you can't hit your shots with this weapon. This is definitely a very beginner-friendly weapon because it's going to be so easy to use. But what else does it bring to the table other than its insane accuracy? It also has really good strafe speed for an AR and a good fire rate at 790 compared to the XM4's 721, and that fire rate is going to be key in keeping its TTK up. And the last major advantage it has over the XM4 is it has 25% better range, and that's going to be the FARA's sweet spot with its TTK. Now time for what the XM4 does better. TTK, everyone's favorite stat, is where the XM4 makes its case. Inside 22 meters, it knocks people 4% faster than the FARA, and at long range, it knocks people about 3% faster per rounding. Then, this is because it takes one less shot to knock people due to it having 2 extra damage per body shot. However, the XM4 excels in closer range combat because its superior movement speed. So the only place the FARA does better involving movement is strafing, as we mentioned in the last section, but the XM4 has it on ADS, sprint to fire, and base movement speed. So if you pair this with its 4% advantage with its close range TTK, the XM4 will do significantly better inside 22 meters than the FARA. Now I'd like to go over a couple stats where the weapons are identical, first being their max bullet velocity both being 1155, which is an excellent bullet velocity because all you need to be in the meta is have around a 900 plus bullet velocity, and we're easily surpassed that. Now the next stat being their hipfire, which it isn't good for either one of them because they're ARs, they aren't supposed to excel in that area, so I'm not really too worried about that. The XM4 has good ADS for up close, the FARA's isn't so hot, but you could also enhance that if you really wanted to use it in close range. And finally, it's time for the verdict, and I'm actually going to be suggesting we use both of these weapons in Warzone because they're both meta and they're both amazing. I had a really fun time using both these weapons, but we're going to be using them in different roles, okay? The FARA is going to be your long-range AR, and you're going to want to pair it with your subs, and then the XM4 is going to be a sniper support, which you obviously pair with a sniper. Because what am I doing here when I do these class setups? I'm going to be going to their strengths. Technically, both these weapons can be used in any role. You can use either one as a sniper support or either one as long range, but I want to increase what they do well. So with the XM4, it's its close range TTK with its movement. And then the FARA, what it does well is its insanely low recoil, which gets benefited by its almost no need for headshots. You only need 1 headshot at close range to knock off a bullet to kill, and then at long range you only need 2 headshots to knock off a bullet to kill, making its time to kill actually really good, and it's not even hard to do. So what we're going to be doing is making the FARA have even less recoil and making the XM4 have even better movement speed. So let's get into these class setups. Alright, so let's start off with the FARA loadout, and let's remember what it's good at, range and recoil. So those are the 2 things we're trying to buff up even more. So we're going to start off with the muzzle, and that's what the Grau suppressor does. Recoil control and damage range, plus we get a little bit more bullet velocity, so those are all wins. Then we're going to move over to the barrel, and what's this got? We got the Spetsnaz RPK barrel. Sure, it's going to be lowering its hip fire, but we're not going to be using it for that anyways. And its movement speed is going to go down, but we just got to remember, we're going to be pairing this with a sub, so we don't need to be running around insanely fast with this. So this gets us bullet velocity, horizontal and vertical recoil, plus damage range. So that's a huge win on this class setup. Then obviously we're going to use an optic, which this is really all preference based, but for me, I think the Axial Arms 3 times is the best Cold War optic, so that's what I'm going to throw on here. Then, as always, we need to get more rounds in the clip so we get more damage output per mag. And for this one, I know it's going to be lowering down your aim down sight speed, but since we're only using this at long range, we don't really need the aim down sight speed to be crazy, because if it's inside 20 meters, that's just SMG territory. So this thing I think 60 rounds is the way to go. And finally, for the underbarrel, we're going to be adding to that horizontal recoil and vertical recoil, and we're going to be able to control it even better. And then this thing, I mean, it's just going to be an absolute laser, and you're not going to miss any shots with it. There's going to be absolutely no effort in you hitting your shots now. Sure, the movement speed might be a little slowed down, and the ADS might be slowed down a bit, but remember, we're pairing this with a sub. We don't need this within 20 meters, so even if the aim down sight speed is a little over 500 milliseconds, it's not going to be an issue. You're not even going to notice it being that slow, because you're not going to be using it in any situations where you actually need the aim down sight speed to be fast. So this is your loadout: Grew suppressor, Spetsnaz RBK barrel, axial arms 3 times, Spetsnaz grip, and Spetsnaz 60 round mag. Now let's move on over to the XM4. So first off, on the XM4, we're going to be doing the same thing we did with the FARA, and that's going to be throwing on the agency suppressor, because this is just probably the best attachment on all ARs right here. Sure, the suppressor can give you some better movement and stuff like that, but since we're not using a sub, I think the agency suppressor has to be what you pick here. And then from there, we're going to go over to a laser, because the Tiger Team Spotlight, what is that going to do? It's going to increase our movement speed, which is already good, and then it's going to help our strafe speed, which is not excellent right now. So we're going to try to buff that up a little bit while also buffing something that it's already super strong with. And then go over to the stock. We're going to throw on the Raider pad, because what does this do? ADS firing move speed, another strafing element, aim walking movement speed, strafe again, and sprint to fire time, something it's already really strong with ARs. And minus hip fire, we don't care about that because we're never going to hip fire an AR. And then from there, of course, we got to do ammunition again. And I know that going to the 60 round snag nag is going to hurt your ADS, but I think we need it, because with a sniper secondary, if you're playing, honestly, trios, you should never use this in quads, I don't think, because using a sniper in quads is just a bad move in my opinion. But this can be used up to trios. I think you need the 60 rounds to help you if you're ever on a 1-on-3 engagement. You're going to need the extra 15 bullets. But if you think you can manage without it, you can use the 45 round. This is an optional part, but I would suggest using the Stag Nag 60 round mag. And then from there, we're going to go to a rear grip. Now for this one, there's 2 options you can have. You can just use the Serpent grip for ADS, and you only lower your sprint to fire time, which we already have buffed in another category, which is sort of going to counteract this con. But the Airborne Elastic Wrap is going to give you more pros, and it's also going to help your ADS a little bit more, but it obviously gives you a couple more cons with your ADS firing move speed, which we already tried to increase with another attachment, so it sort of counterbalance that. And then firing movement speed, same thing, we have that buffed in another attachment as well. Sprint to fire time is the same loss you get from Serpent grip, but for me, I personally prefer the Airborne Elastic Wrap because I like the extra benefits with aiming stability and flinch resistance. But if you want, you could also, of course, use the Serpent Wrap. And then basically, I would just mirror these attachment lists. If you want to use the FARA sniper support, throw these attachments over onto the FARA. And you saw the FARA loadout, just throw that over onto the XM4 if you want to use it at range, because they both work in these roles. But obviously, as I said, this is going to be the XM4 strongest class, and then the FARA long range one is going to be its strongest class. And now that we're done with the class setups, if you guys want to know which gun I actually truly prefer, because they're both great, but obviously, you know, you gotta have a preference of one over the other. But for my personal playstyle, since I just don't think sniping is necessarily the way to play your best, it's fun to snipe, but it's not like your super try-hard mode typically. So if you want to do the best, I'd probably use the FARA with a sub. If you're going for a little bit more fun, I'd use the XM4 with a sniper. So that's my final suggestion for this video, and I hope you all enjoyed. And if you want to see more of these versus weapons matchups, I'll have a playlist in the description, and I'll have a video linked right at the end, but I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.